All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we're going to open up the phone lines in a few minutes. Tonight, we're talking about the white paper. Of course, that's probably going to lead to a conversation about independence, self-governance, financial management. Of course, most of those things, a lot of things were laid out in the white paper. If you hadn't had a chance to review the white paper, I believe it's online. Before the end of the show, I'll get you the website where you can go online and pull it down yourself. But again, just a little background.
You can find it.
Okay, Shanna will tell us where we can find it in a minute.
Okay, in a minute.
Yeah, in a minute. In September of last year to January of this year, there was a series, like Shanna said, a series of questions that came out, small white paper. I think in England they really call it a blue paper or something like that, where it's discussion first, and then they formulate opinions and so forth, policies with the answers and so forth that they got. In June of this year, the white paper was released. I want to read a message from the Prime Minister himself, Mr. David Cameron, I believe. And then just to set the tone, so some of you can get a little background as to the thinking and the mindset of the British government. Of course, we have to start talking about what do we want as a people, what direction we want to go and take the country in. Of course, England has already put some measures in place. We have financial protocols. We signed that in April. We're looking at UK businesses being able to do business in the BVI. You tell me how you feel about that. This is a message from the Prime Minister himself. It says most of the people of the territories are British, and where they choose to remain British, we will respect and welcome that choice. The relationship entails a balance of benefits and responsibilities, which everyone must respect. This government is ambitious for territories as we are ambitious for the United Kingdom. We want to see our communities flourish in partnership with strong and sustainable local economies. We see an important opportunity to set the world standard in a stewardship of the extraordinary natural environment we inherit. So again, Shana, back to you. You know, when I don't want to interject my personal feelings. It's hard for me. You have to understand that. But when I look and I read, and again, as a UK citizen, that's how I look at myself, despite the fact that we don't have the right to vote in the UK Parliament. I think in moving forward, the UK is probably saying, if that's the choice you want to make, then you have to make that choice, because you can't stay in limbo. I was listening to Doug and those guys last night, and I love listening to Doug because I think the man is a brilliant fellow.
Walking encyclopedia.
And he said, you know, that he is a walking encyclopedia. He's a well-researched fellow. He said, you know, we can't stay in limbo. We can't stay where we are. So people, you have to understand that we've been sitting because the UK haven't acted. And in this policy paper, in this white paper, they clearly said that. They said they have neglected to put forward any type of conversation to move in either direction. And they're telling the territories, and there's 14 of them, they're telling them that you have to make up your mind. You have to decide, because the bottom line is that we can't have a two-tier system. If you're a UK citizen in an overseas territory, UK government will expect that United Kingdom citizens who are born and raised in that part of the world will be able to come here and have the same rights, and we were born and raised here will be able to go there and have this equal rights. So where do you see us today? Moving forward, is the conversation going to take place, or leaders are they at that point now? Are they ready for this conversation? And is the people ready for the conversation? You can't answer for the people. We're going to ask them. But what do you think, policy-wise? Are we ready for that?
in terms of
to move forward, to have that discussion, to maybe look at self-governance. Of course, you laid it out. I just want to set this out, that it's not all about just going independence. There's other relationships that we can develop as a territory and still have autonomy. So people need to understand that. Don't be scared and think that you can lose relationship with England if you go independence. No, you can retain and acquire new relationship that would give you a lot of benefit as well.
Yeah, and you said it correctly, because that was one of the things that is noted in the paper, as far as this is about re-engagement. This is about redefining the relationship between the UK government and the territories, as far as what or how do we interact. Because, you know, sometimes we feel that the UK makes decisions, whether it's laws or, you know, maybe go into agreements, say like things in the European Union that we don't have a direct say in, but we have to accept it because of our political status with them. So the question of, you know, are we ready to have a conversation about self-governance? Self-governance is something I think it's fair to say that should be a discussion all the time, Sam. Because I think I said this when I walked in the room when we started talking, that, you know, if we had started preparing ourselves 20 years ago, in 10 years' time, we'd be ready to make that step if it came down to it. And again, at that same token, as far as actually defining a new relationship. So it's not necessarily something where we're severing ties. And I learned this the other day too, in terms of learning, understanding what a Commonwealth nation is. Because the Queen is still head of state of a Commonwealth nation. Absolutely. But the level of governance now, as far as what the role of the governor is and how much say they have in the operation of the country, has been, you know, relegated to basically to kind of like a figurehead. Absolutely. But they still represent the Queen as head of state in these countries. Even in some independent states. People need to understand. So like take Jamaica, Canada, for example. Jamaica, St. Vincent. That's right. They're still what when you refer to as a Commonwealth, you know, the Queen is still head of state. In Trinidad, no, they are a republic. That's right. So they have a president, and that person is elected. So they're similar to the American form of government. As a republic, you're really independent. You have no relation. You're truly a sovereign country in that regard, because there's no one over you. There's no head of your state. You are it. But I think we need to emphasize that, because I've been having this discussion with people when they talk about independence, and I said to people, true independence is a republic. And I try to bring the example of Canada. The last time Canada had election, they were having trouble forming the government. Because they're still part of the Commonwealth, right? The governor general set aside the Constitution, and she ran the country for a short period of time until they were able to form the government. She answers to the Queen. She is elected internally from the government that's formed, but still she represents the Queen. So people need to really understand that. And when you start talking about independence, it's a very long process. And a lot of things that have to be discussed in terms of defining that new relationship that we would want to have with the UK government. So, you know, because people look at things also like our size, and whether or not we'll be able to, so to speak, fend for yourself in this big global world. But I think, you know, again, when you start to understand how interconnected and interrelated so many things are, that, you know, the relationship, let's say we decided, okay, we want to become similar to Canada's situation. You have another level of parliament, because then you have upper house, lower house, you know, and you organize your public service accordingly to how you want it. And if we decide, okay, we want the UK to still be responsible for our external security, you know, all of these are things that would have to be put on the table to say, what is it that we want? How do we want to relate in this world? And who can help us do that? Shana, you know? I wanna read also the message from, I think, Mr. Billingham himself. Before I do that, I want to get to this text. This text said, we are not ready for independence. The day we move to self-government will be the day of our destruction. We have too much greed and corruption and self-interest and not much real love for our country. That's from a texter. Somebody has some strong views on that. So, of course, we allow people to speak out and speak their mind. That's how they feel. Mr. Billingham, he said the strategy set out in this white paper is designed to meet those challenges and deliver the vision.
It is a strategy of re-engagement. It builds on a 1999 white paper, Partnership for Progress and Prosperity. It is also a strategy of re-evaluation. We have not in the past devoted enough attention to the vast and prestige environment in the land and seas of our territories. We are stewards of these assets for future generations. Now, I think that spells it out. I mean, again, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to appeal. I want to appeal before I get back to you, Shana, to the people who are watching this show, the older people especially. You know, since I started doing this show, there's a lot of older people. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not calling you old. I'm just saying, using the word old to differentiate the fact that you have wisdom. That's all I'm trying
elders,
to do.
Yes.
There's a lot of elderly people.
No, not elders.
Okay.
Yes, elders.
Respectful people.
Yes.
Who have a lot to say. They're wise people, smart people, but for some reason they don't speak much. They don't really talk.
Watch a lot.
They watch a lot, they observe, and they'll pull you in a corner, they'll whisper in my ear. I believe that those people who are watching this show, who have that type of insight on things, should be in the forefront and should never be afraid or apprehensive to express themselves, because the people who are running the system, the government, the administrations, the different organizations, they listen to you. They listen to you guys, and you need to speak up. You have knowledge, you have history behind you, and those things will make people like myself listen. Stop, drop, and listen. And I'm appealing to the elders to start. Tell us what's on your mind. Speak up. You don't need to hold back. There's absolutely nothing to hold back for other than protecting and safeguarding. The UK government, people who don't know anything about our territories other than the study that they intake to analyze and figure out what's happening, you know more than them. But they are now setting out policies. And I'm not saying it's bad. There's nothing about what they do and I think it's bad. I think it's good that they are forcing our hands, the territories, and just remember, it's not just the BVI. There's 14 territories. And there's territories that are predominantly white. There's territories that are predominantly black. There's territories that are mixed up. There's territories that focus on agriculture, that have a strong fishing economy. There's all kinds of territories out there. So the UK have their hand full, and they are doing whatever they can do. There's territories that they help with aid still. Montserrat is a prime example. St. Helen. They're building a brand new airport. So the UK means well. I believe they mean well. And if you sit down and read the white paper, there's nothing wrong with what they're saying. But we now have to take the responsibility to start formulating what we want. And if you don't do it, they will do it for you. So, Shana, again, we talked about self-governance, and I'm going to open up the phone after you had a chance to respond to this one. We want to talk about some of the other options. Most people think, I heard again the guys last night were talking about integration, or being integrated into the mindset, the culture, the of that of the Great Britain, and they outlined that also in the white paper. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about, we're already British? Why not be full British? Why not?
It will make us more British than what we already are.
Accepting, sharing, interchanging, working closer. I mean, having that exchange.
Okay. For me, right, I love the word that we've been using as far as our partnership, right? If you and I are partners in a business, I don't have to become you for us to be partners, right? But we need to have that middle ground where we sit down and we can have discussion, set a joint vision together and say, okay, this is where we want to grow the business, this is what we want to do. So similar to the situation we have here, one of the things that the hope is that with this, because this is also impetus of the or the agenda of the joint the coalition government in the UK. as far as when they went back and reviewed the paper and looked at, okay, this is how we're going to interact going forward. So if we're going to have situations where, say for example, the Communication and Works Ministry in the UK decides to, or makes available technical resources to come and help us with our sewage system, I'm all for that. But I don't need to, we don't need, it's not necessary to say, no, I have to start flying a Union Jack, you know, all along the way, and different things like that, because there are those visual aspects in terms of, you know, there were references to a British identity. But I think in terms of a modern partnership that we need to start looking at for our territory is in terms of looking at where, say, we have deficiencies such as technical resources or technical knowledge that we can benefit from. UK has been around for centuries upon centuries, and it's important that we learn from people's mistakes, not necessarily want to make our own. So
you're saying the position, when you look at the 1999 white paper and you look at what came out of some of that,
new constitution was one of those moves.
Or new constitution.
Because they talked about the need for more, you know, in terms of giving the territories more responsibility to determine your destiny, where do you want to go. So we'll give you some new responsibilities or additional responsibilities. And that was also a negotiation process of, you know, this is what you want, this is what we're going to give you, and eventually this is what we got. Yeah. You know, so and again, it's not perfect.
You got a passport, UK passport. That was another thing. And you got the opportunity to travel, live, exist within the EU and also within Great Britain, but then there was also non-reciprocal position. So the BVI was protected in a way. So that's probably one of the strongest points that was negotiated back then. So that's a good example for people to look at to see that we can have autonomy without giving up our sovereignty. We can have benefits without giving up anything. But in order to have that, in order to get the things that you're looking for, you must start discussing. You must have that.
Can I also make a point too? And this is where I've been doing a lot of history research as far as VA history. And when you go back in the books, and at one point we only had an executive council here. Actually, we had a legislative council, and then that was taken away.
1900.
Well, this is when we were still part of the federation that was governed out of Antigua and included St. Kitts and Nevis and some of the other Leeward Islands, right? So we got to a point where, you know, we were like, nah, we want to have our own representative on the ground that reflects us. So we lobbied for a legislative council. Boom, it happened. Now, if people think that everybody was on board with that, that's not the case. People thought that we weren't responsible enough to have a legislative council because people are going to have their own agendas and try to push for this, that, and the other. So similar to the opinion that was just expressed, you know, I can understand where there are those that are going to be in opposition for various reasons, but it is something that history tells us that if we sit down and start to weigh the pros and cons, suppose now we didn't never lobby for a legislative council, where would we have been? And then the legislative council was very small. The governor still had a lot of control as far as what happened, the decisions that were made, and eventually they started giving out the little portfolios. And then we in I think it was 67, we got the ministerial system that we have now, and the system continues to evolve. Right?
But I must say, Shana, though, I believe personally, when you look at those guys and men and women between, you know, let's say when the U.S. Virgin Islands opened up in the 1920s, all the way up to the 1950s, 60s when we seceded from the Federation, I believe the mindset of most of those people at that time was saying self-determination, self-government.
Pushing for that autonomy.
You know, when they sat down, there was probably, a handful of people that were saying, oh, we're not ready yet, we're not mature enough. But then there were smart people who were saying, we have the relationship, we have trade now with the U.S. Virgin Islands, we got the U.S. dollar in here, we're managing this, we have, if we can get a governor here to have our own representative. But the point is, though, at that time, the conversation was taking place. And people were not afraid to voice their concern. And I'm talking about some of those smart people now, again and again, those elders who were there
and lived it.
And they stood up for what they believe. But majority will always carry. And if you don't have any at all, the majority will be the white paper. You know? Share it real quick. This text says, as an island, We don't need a white paper. We need sandpaper, especially how this country is going. I'm not sure what the sandpaper going to do, but I hear what you're saying.
Might be rough.
We have a serious issue with young girls parading themselves in the club, at parties, and on the street telling men they're 18, pretending to be of legal age and having, sex with other older men. Older men, if they're young, you don't believe that they're old enough, leave them alone. I support what you're saying, Texa. I believe that young girls especially should be held accountable. Right now our system doesn't believe in that, so you protect yourself. If you know they're underage, don't get involved with them. If you go into places and you see a bunch of teeny boppers sitting in front of the stairs and stuff, go someplace else. That's how I feel about that. And I promise I won't give you any more of my personal feelings, but we're reading the text. We are not ready for independence. We already read that one. This person don't feel that we're mature enough and ready, but that's what we just talked about, Shana. Getting to that point, at the same time, we must have the conversation. Does the white paper address the currency
to be used
in the territory? No, but again,
and that came to mind because that's another thing. As far as we haven't always used the US dollar, as far as I understand, we had the pound, but because of the level of trade between the US and the British Virgin Islands, representation was made that it makes life easier for everybody if we use one currency. And with permission now, because this had to be negotiated between UK and US to say yes, go ahead, y'all can use, so that you don't have to worry about exchanging and exchange rates and all of these things.
The notes that I found, right, because when I do my tours, this is one of the questions people ask all the time.
Where we spend
I think it's
dollar?
1959, and I would like somebody, please, you have time to research it. 1959, I believe, is when the US dollar became the legal tender in the British Virgin Islands. Again, I credit the people back then for having foresight, for having vision, wisdom. I think
this is before we had doctorates. This is before we had all of this. So this isn't even about education or like having this level of intelligence, but this is like you're calling it. It's a level of wisdom and understanding.
But it's common sense education.
Where you see,
common sense
to me,
education.
Wisdom trumps any textbook any day. Because it is something where life experiences teach people a lot more than I could even go in a classroom and start to talk about it.
Hold your thoughts. I just want to let the callers know, ladies and gentlemen, the phone lines are open. If you want to pose a question about the white paper, you want to talk about independence or self-governance, you want to talk about what's going to happen on Monday in the legislature. I'm going to say White House. It is White
House of Assembly.
House of Assembly. Please feel free to call us. Again, I'm encouraging the older, wiser people to call us, the elders, to call us and let us know how you feel
about it.
You do it all the time. You pull me up in the corner and you tell me, you need to talk about this. I want you to talk about it. We want to hear your voice. We have a phone call, Shannon.
Okay.
You want to speak your mind? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good evening, Shannon.
Talk
good
to
evening.
me.
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion tonight on the white paper.
Well, we appreciate you calling. Let us know.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out is a few of us, even before the white paper came out, speculated on the intentions of the United Kingdom in terms of encouraging their businesses to come down to the overseas territories and to, be able to exploit some of the opportunities that we have here. And some people might have thought that we were just conspiracy theorists. But I think it's important for the people to know that the United Kingdom government has actually spelled this out explicitly in the white paper. So anybody who thought that, when we were speaking about Whitewater, for example, and even recently with the PAIR project, we were speculating as to whether the United Kingdom would want their own companies to be able to bid for that particular project, and that might have been part of the motivation. But in addition to the tender process and all of that, but they would have wanted some of their companies to be able to exploit some of those opportunities. And I'll just read the paragraph in the white paper that deals with it. It says trade promotion and inward investment. It says the government believes that there are opportunities for British business in the overseas territories. For example, in the hydrocarbons, fisheries, sustainable energy, and tourism sectors, and I'll emphasize tourism sectors. In some cases, they might be deterred from pursuing these opportunities through uncertainty over the legal and political context. That statement I find very interesting. Or because they simply lack the necessary information. The government wants to encourage British business to explore these opportunities. I'll stop there so you guys could respond.
Well, Carla, thank you so much for the call.
Yeah.
You want to hold or you going to hang up?
I'll hang on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shayna, I'm going to let you respond to that in a minute. I think that's a very important...
Yeah, see, I have it highlighted. I was actually trying to find it because I didn't see it.
My question before you answer that, Shayna, as an overseas territory, as of course, I mean, let's just face it. Let's face the reality. We are a country of people that believe in a certain identity, but we've been managed and controlled by the UK since I think 1670s, right? We've been annexed since then. If I was the UK, looking at the territories and looking at opportunities to link the UK with those territories, is it bad for them to do that? To approach the territories in a manner? And then why not the territories approach the UK in the same manner? Because even that was outlined in the white paper.
In the paper, yeah.
You know, they're talking about as a overseas territory connected to the EU through Great Britain. We also have an opportunity for trade. Now, I'll let you respond. What I want to say is that I believe, again, I'm doing it again, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm going to stop. I believe that if we were a people like we were 30 years ago, and we were thinking about the things that we can do to lock those opportunities down for ourselves, to not leave any space available for anyone else. For example, the Pier Park, the airport, fishing, developing tourism. If we were thinking about, as government, as people, every opportunity we get to make sure that all people get those opportunities first, no matter what. You do whatever it takes as a country to lock those opportunities down for your people. Then it wouldn't matter who's looking from the outside. Because if it comes to building a hotel, and we can rally 3 or 4 of our investors to say, let's build this hotel, we have the connection to with this airline, that airline is based in this country, and they got a number of people that can come here through that airline to this hotel. You make one connection, this hotel belongs to us, it doesn't matter who owns it within the BVI, it's branded as a nice place to stay, it accommodates the visitors. If we could do that, if we could start thinking on that level, then we won't have to feel threatened about other people looking in. But again, the question is, the UK is the UK. It's our motherland. What's wrong with them seeking opportunities and linking British companies with the territories? What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with it?
Yeah, I'm asking you. I don't know. I'm asking.
I
can't give you my opinion.
Okay.
I don't know if
So you already gave me your opinion, so I have to give you mine. Okay, what the caller said is true, and I actually did come across it as far as in the section chapter 2, successful and resilient economies. They talk about trade promotion and inward investment, trade policy. And this is one of the things where I always say this, that if we don't set an agenda or come up with our own agenda, somebody's going to set the agenda for us. So essentially, when we look around, because the thing is for me, it's not just the UK looking for opportunities here in the territory, it's all and sundry. Because when you look at what China is doing, you know, if you have, as a country, you have a supply that is basically, you have a surplus. So within your country, you already met that demand. You're looking for demand elsewhere. So when it comes to the current economic climate, in the UK, you know, they're dealing with coming out of the recession. So they're looking for economic opportunity. Where's the obvious place to look?
In the territories?
In places where you know it's going to be a lot easier for you to get in there and not be necessarily termed as foreign investment, because that is your territory.
But if you're the BVI and you're St. Helen or you're, let's say, Gibraltar, that have good, strong economies, and obviously there's a need for resources, there's need for expertise from the UK, and I'm the UK. I mean, I'm playing double advocate here now. I'm the UK. I'm looking at, hey, in the BVI, obviously they're real strong in financial services, but tourism needs some help. Wow, they get ready to build. They want to build a brand new cruise pier, and I'm the UK, and I got companies in the UK
who do that,
and they trying to bring in a company from the United States or China or someplace. Why would I as a UK own and run and operate a territory allows that? Why would I? What is the benefit of me doing that and losing that opportunity, not bridging the connection? I'm asking.
So basically they're looking out for their own interests, and if what the caller is expressing and saying is that we need to look out for our own interests, which is why it's key that we pay attention to things like the white paper, and it's not necessarily just it's a government document, so only persons in the government or the public service should be concerned with it. Everybody should be concerned with, especially the private sector, with a statement like this, because if I have a business here, it means now my competition is not just here locally, it is basically offshore as well. Because if the opportunity presents itself, somebody will make representation and say, well, I want a piece of this, you know, and we have to become more cognizant now as a population and stop saying that, oh well, that's you know, something for the government ministers to deal with.
We got a call, we do a text, and then we can go on a break.
All right.
You want to speak your mind? Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Sam and Chip. I heard you asking people to give their opinions. I ain't hearing much direct opinions, but I'll tell you this. From my perspective, I know as Virgin Islanders, we have always looked forward to trying to determine our own future. The question of whether we are interested in independence, it depends on how the question is asked. Are you ready for independence? I don't think necessarily we are. Have we been planning for independence? Maybe we've been laying some of the groundwork, but we have a lot more that needs to be done if you really want to continue to determine your own future and continue to grow. But as a people, I know for a fact that we don't necessarily want to be British. I think if you ask the majority of people who the ministers in the British Parliament is, I'm not sure they're going to be able to name any of them. And as a Virgin Island too, as you talked about before, we have always sought to do a lot of things ourselves. We've been looking forward to our country continuing to grow and continue to mature. Now there's a lot of things over the years that we've not necessarily been happy with, and there's a lot of things that we've been happy that the BVI has been able to cover so many grounds, coming from our agricultural background and going forward to where we are now, very well respected in the world. How much of that development is the UK responsible for? And have they, helped us or brought us money and lent us money and our growth and all that kind of stuff like that? And when you check it, you may realize that it was very little.
It was us.
Well, I think Carl,
it's always very, it's always going to be cumbersome for the UK to have sort of a strained relations with the territories. And then a new government gets in the UK, and of course we want to develop a closer relationship, but that closer relationship is not going to happen overnight. And that closer relationship should not take back the authority that you have already worked for as a people over the years. For instance, in a deeper relationship with the UK, what does it really mean? Does it mean that the UK now controls our immigration policies? Does it mean the UK now controls our education policies or our education system as they do for their citizens? So the questions for us, at least for me, is easy in terms of I've always been looking forward to honest people from the Virgin Islands and those who have come to live among us continue to grow and mature and develop into a much more vibrant community. And we have to make the policies, put the policies in place and the institutions in place, whether it be cultural institutions or the court system or prudent financial system, make us develop as a people. In what you're doing tonight in terms of having discussion and making sure people are familiar with the democratic process in terms of being part of the conversation and understand the discussion, those are the things that we have to do more of.
So Carla, that leads me to the question.
I just want to say one thing, because I heard you say the UK is our mother country. And I really want you to know that the UK is not our mother country. There are former slave masters or colonial powers or whatever how you want to call it, but they're not our mother country. And if you look at their participation in our development and how we've arrived where we are, you will realize that it has been very little in the past.
Yep.
I told Carla, before you go though, I want to ask you this, and I appreciate it. Oh, he gone. If you could call us back, we just want to get some clarification on who and when and where do we start the process? Who's responsible for initiating the process? I mean, you know, when things like this happen, it always comes down to the talk show host. It always comes down to people like us to push the umbrella, and then we sometimes get ridiculed and we get stigmatized for pushing the umbrella. But who's responsible for engaging the people, for setting out the conversation, to start moving the direction of the conversation into those areas? Who's responsible for doing the surveys and really getting the feedback of the people? Before you answer that, I'm gonna read this text real quick, and then we're gonna go to break, and then I want you to come back and answer that question. The text says, does the white paper address the issue of our tax code being able to enlist in the military and education standard? It does respond to tax codes and education and military. It does, but I'll let you answer that on the break. We'll answer that after the break. We got one more text. I just want to hit this text. When we go independent, assuming we do, whose money will be spent? Not the U.S. That's a question and a comment at the same time, so we'll address both of those when we come back. So ladies and gentlemen, the engineer is telling us that we need to take a break to give respect to the people who make this show possible. And I just want to make a plea to you folks out there, if you have it in your goodness or your heart and you want to sponsor the show and keep it alive, because again, shows like this are very important. Feel free to call the station from tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, and tell them you want to sponsor. And sponsorship simply means, ladies and gentlemen, we help bring business to your business. We expose your business to the people who are viewing. JTV is one of the best out there, so I thought I'd just put a plug in for that. So we'll take a break and we'll be right back with this discussion.